The NAR settlement is here, $418 million. It's all the buzz. It's a firestorm on social media and in the news. It's all over the place. You know, I think it deserves some attention as to what is going to transpire for us as real estate and mortgage people. And I've got my thoughts on it. And I just wanted to share my 2 cents on what I think we'll see here come mid-July. Welcome to the Mortgage Loan Officer Podcast. I'm your host, Frank Array, brought to you by the Mortgage Marketing Animals. So this is what I think is going to happen. Of course, you're probably already aware that NAR settled this lawsuit, $418 million. And in this settlement, they laid out some rules. And one of those rules is that nobody can be sued for this ever again. So that's a good thing. That's one of the rules of the settlement. That's right. One of the things they negotiated is no more copycat lawsuits. Anybody who's ever been associated with NAR or a local MLS or a local board, any of that has got their amnesty, or not amnesty. What is it? It's their get out of jail free card. They don't have to. They can't be subject to any lawsuits or anything like that. So that's cool. So they want to, make sure that that's off the table. Nobody can get sued for this anymore. So that's kind of nice. The other thing is, of course, that the buyer side commissions can no longer be listed in the MLS. Another thing is basically that there's no obligation to pay a buyer commission, none whatsoever. But they can still, from what I read, the buying agent can still negotiate a commission from the listing agent. In other words, they can request to make some of the commission that the listing agent is making. And then finally, there's going to have to be buyer representation in writing. And, that will state clearly what the buyer's obligated to pay to that buyer agent for that representation. So what do I think is going to happen? Here's what I think we're going to see. I think that the 3% to 3.5% commission is going to become the norm for a listing agent. It's going to become normal. And I think that what will wind up happening is in the private remarks in the MLS, I don't know how all MLSs work. Where I'm at here in Northern California, there's a section in the MLS listing that's private remarks. These are remarks between agents, right? And in the private remarks, I think that you'll see if there's going to be what I'm calling LAC, which would be listing agent cooperation, right? Listing agent cooperation. So, for example, listing agent takes a listing, they take it at 3.5%, and they'll put in the private remarks that they will cooperate with a buyer's agent for a piece of their commission. But I think it's going to be to the tune of 0.5% to 1%. That's what I think is going to happen. This is just my opinions. This is Frank Array's crystal ball. I could be completely wrong, but I'm just going to lay it out there. I think this is how this is going to go. So there will be listing agent cooperation that you'll see in the private remarks in the MLSs, where the listing agent will state to a buyer agent, hey, if you bring me somebody, I'll give you 0.5%, or maybe 1%, something like that. That's what I'm guessing. Okay. I think that buyer agents, if they manage to get a buyer to agree to pay them directly for their representation, as a fee paid by the buyer directly to them at the close of escrow, not included in the loan or part, from the seller or anything like that. I think that if they get those things signed, that those are going to be $2,000 or less. I think for a buyer to agree to pay an agent for the representation, I just don't think it's going to be like 1% or 2% or anything like that. I think it's going to be like, you're going to see like $19.95 or $19.50. In fact, I also see buyer representation agents popping up as discount ones, where I'll bet maybe even before the end of the year, I'll bet you see buyer representation agents saying that they'll represent you for, $500, something like that, and $750, something like that. And of course, their pitch is going to be, hey, Don't go directly to the listing agent because they're representing the seller. You need your own representation. Hire me for $7.95 and I'll negotiate for you. And then they're going to have to sign something where they pay them directly at the close. That's what I think. I also think that what'll wind up happening in real estate offices, especially the bigger ones where you've got some heavy hitter listing agents in there, seeing as how I think that a lot of buyers will now start going directly to the listing side simply because I think a lot of buyers won't want to sign an exclusive buyer agent agreement where they're locked into paying them a certain amount of money. I don't, let me rephrase that. I shouldn't say that. Some will not want to do that. I shouldn't say a lot. I don't know how this is going to go with the consumer, but I think some will shy away from that and they'll try to go directly to the listing agent, right? But I think with the bigger offices where you've got, and this might even be smaller offices, I don't know, but where you've got, well, it could be any size office really, where you've got a listing agent that doesn't want to participate in dual agency, because there's a lot of them out there that don't. They don't care for it. They don't want to do dual agency because it's dual agency, right? There's potential issues that come with that. There will be designated buyer reps in the office, is what there will be, and much like a uh, what do we call it in real estate? The assistants that help them close the deal, transaction coordinators, right? So these buyer reps that will be in the offices, designated buyer reps, will work on a flat fee, and I could see that flat fee being about $950 or something like that. But I don't know. This is just Frank's prognostication. There's no. I'm just guessing at what I think it might be. I have no idea. We'll see how it plays out. I'd be very curious to hear what you think about my thoughts on this. But I think that the bigger offices are going to have, buyer reps. And so when a buyer comes directly to a listing agent, that listing agent may say, if they don't want to participate in dual agency, may say, hey, yeah, you want to buy the house? That's cool. If you don't have a buyer agent in your pocket, if you have not signed a buyer agent agreement with somebody, but if you want to, make an offer on this house, you're going to have to, talk to someone. We have buyer reps in our office. They'll do it for you for a flat fee, something along those lines. In fact, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that could be an agreement with the listing agent and the office to cover the buyer rep fee out of their commission. So then the buyer that comes in and works with the in-house buyer rep doesn't have to come out of pocket with anything, because the agreement inter-office would be that, hey, you take a listing, and if you don't want to do dual agency, you can send them to one of our designated buyer reps, but there's, $800 is coming out, or $950 is coming out of your commission. You agree to that to cover the buyer rep, right? So now it's negotiated between the buyer rep and the listing agent's commission, not the seller, right? So I think that's kind of what you're probably going to see. Let's see, what else did I have here? Oh, and then of course you're going to see some companies, and probably more along the lines of the solo real estate broker, right? Who's out there on their own, being an individual real estate broker who does get listings, probably just taking those listing agreements for, maybe 2.5% and just not negotiating. No negotiate. You either come on, you as a buyer agent have to come in with the buyer who's paying you directly, or not. They got to come directly to the listing agent, one or the other. So I think you will see that with the individual brokers more than the big shops. I think the individual real estate brokers will be just taking listings at 2.5%, and you're on your own. If you're a buyer, if you're a buyer and you've got a buyer agent, well, you got to pay them. That's the way it's going to be. So what does it mean for us? What does it mean for us as loan guys and gals? I don't know. I think at the end of the day, this is how it's always been. The excitement's in the home, not in the loan. So home buyers are going to reach out to real estate agents, whether it's the listing agent or another agent. They're going to reach out to the agent first to, inquire on a house before they get the loan started. It's just the way it is. 9 out of 10 times, that's how it is. That's the way it'll always be. And so we as originators just have to make sure we're working with those agents who get those inquiries. That's it. That's it. Nothing really changes for us as an originator. As long as you're a smart originator and you work with producing agents, you're just going to continue to work with the producing agent. And those buyer, referrals are going to come in from somewhere, from one or the other, either from the listing agent themselves, or if they're referring it to an in-house buyer agent, but somebody's going to have to, make sure that they've got a pre-approval, and somebody's going to make a suggestion to a loan originator. And we just find those people. That's all we do. I mean, nothing really changes for us because people still buy homes and need loans. That's it. We just got to, put our crosshairs on a different person. Maybe that's it. But that's all we do. I don't think it's going to really change too much for us. Just who we work with might change. And then in closing, I mean, I just wanted to give my predictions. And well, before I give them, I'll just recap it. I just think that 3% to 3.5% will be the norm. I think there'll be something called listing agent cooperation that you'll see in private remarks, where there might be 0.5% to 1% be given to a buyer agent who brings in a buyer. I think if an agent does get a buyer to sign an exclusive buyer agent agreement, that the fee for that, if it can't be negotiated, I think in that paperwork, or in that agreement, I think it'll say, if I cannot negotiate a fee from the listing agent themselves, then you agree as the buyer to pay me X amount of dollars. I think that X amount of dollars will probably be under $2,000. I think we'll see discount buyer agents pop up where that will be getting done for under $1,000. I think bigger offices will have buyer reps in their office that will represent buyers that come in directly to the listing agents if they don't want to do dual agency. And I think that there can be an office policy or what have you, where if the listing agent sends a buyer that came to their attention to one of their designated buyer reps, that the fee for that buyer rep is already agreed to by the listing agent to cooperate with his or her commission to pay them. But I think it'll be I think it'll be somewhere in the $900, $1,000 range, something like that. I don't know that it's not going to be a big commission thing, more like a transaction coordinator sort of works, that kind of a thing. And again, I think that some will just do it all. The smaller real estate broker, the individual on their own real estate broker out there who doesn't work with a big office, has their own brand, maybe has an assistant, something like that, they'll just handle it all. They'll just list properties for 2.5%. And when a buyer comes in, they'll just dual agency that, or if the buyer comes in with a buyer agent, then the buyer agent's just going to have to pay that. I mean, the buyer's just going to have to pay that buyer agent. That's it. That's what I think is going to wind up happening. I don't think that for us it makes too big of a difference. We're just going to work with the agents that have the business, who the buyers find the agents first most of the time. 9 out of 10 times, we just got to find those agents and be able to provide value and work with them. And then I would close with this. If you haven't looked into MoveTube is this settlement has made MoveTube the ultimate value add for a real estate partner. MoveTube is just so you understand what it is in brief, MoveTube is a listing conversion tool. It's not lead gen, it's conversion. And MoveTube helps agents that get listings, who regularly get listings, win listings when they're on a listing appointment where they know the seller's interviewing more than one agent. So it helps them convert those scenarios. And those scenarios happen all the time. And I think those scenarios are going to increase greatly now. I think so. There's going to be a lot more competition now. I think the commission is going to be more in the forefront of the consumer's mind now for a seller. I think they're going to be looking for that 3% mark, right? And so this is why they're going to be finding themselves in situations where they're going to be talking to sellers that are talking to more than one agent. And this is how MoveTube helps. they get to win that listing because MoveTube lets them go in there and say, I'm going to do everything everybody else is going to do. But you know what? If you list with me, I'm going to get your home on TV. And they're going to show the MoveTube on a MoveTube listing presentation flyer. And they're going to go, wow, that's cool. That's super neat. I didn't even know that existed. That is amazing. And they're going to win that listing. So MoveTube becomes a huge, huge play right now. It's the ultimate product, I think, especially as an originator. You've got until July to kind of figure out who you're going to go after. MoveTube opens the doors to these agents that are really going to be the ones that are left controlling the situation and standing. I said this before. I said this in, I think it was October of last year. I got up on stage and said, this is what's going to happen. Here we are. It's happening. And I said, this is why MoveTube helps. And I still stand by it. This is why MoveTube helps. It's the only product out there that actually does help in this regard. This is a listing conversion tool. Agents need to win listings now. If they want to make the real money, they need listings. And MoveTube is a listing conversion tool. That's what it is. So at any rate, that's all I had to say. Curious what your thoughts are on it. Let me know. You can find me somewhere, somehow. Join us at Loan Officer Breakfast Club every Monday through Thursday, 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. LoanOfficerBreakfastClub.com. Those are my big fat thoughts. I hope you get something out of it. I don't know what you think, but I'm just going to tell you that, no matter what you're thinking, at the end of the day, I would just say that, I think I'm right. You guys have a great one. See you later. Bye-bye.